Welcome to the Entree Pastors Podcast on YouTube. This is a show that helps pastors think, act, and thrive as prosperous entrepreneurs. Well, hello there, and welcome to the Entree Pastors Podcast on YouTube. I'm John Sanders, one of the co-founders of Entree Pastors, as well as the co-host of the podcast. And in this week's episode, we're going to introduce you to a pastor who's involved in a unique ministry / side hustle, maybe is what I'll call it. Daniel Woodard is a pastor who has been involved in disaster relief for some time now. And well, certainly there's a ministry element to the work that he does with, showing up in the aftermath of hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, that sort of thing. There's also a financial model with it as well. It's a source of some extra income for Daniel as he serves in pastoral ministry. And one of the things I love about our Entree Pastors platform that Daniel is a great example of is that, we hear from so many different pastors and ministry-minded people who are doing all kinds of different awesome things in their ministry and in their business as well. And so, to have someone like Daniel who's not only serving people in a ministry setting, but also finding a way to bring in extra revenue through disaster relief. It's a really cool thing, kind of a unique story, and we're excited to share it with you now. So without any further ado, check out this conversation that I had recently with my friend Daniel Woodard. Here we go. Well, Daniel, it is my pleasure to have you as a guest on the Entree Pastors Podcast, man. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful to be here.
Yeah, man. Hey, give our listeners an idea of where in the world do you call home? Where am I talking to you from today?
Yeah, so I live in Apex, North Carolina. It's just outside of Raleigh. Grew up here, born in Raleigh. Moved away probably, 27 years ago, something like that. Moved back about 6 years, almost 6 years ago, not quite six. And a few years before that, Money Magazine voted Apex the number one place to live in the country. So I left a small town and came back to this booming place that it's one of the fastest growing places in the country, literally. And so 5,000 and come back to 70,000. So it's just a whole different world that I came back to. But
what accounted for all that growth? What made it the number one place to live for a while?
I don't know. There's what's called the Research Triangle Park. A lot of pharmaceutical, different types of IBM was here early on, and just those type of jobs that were around this area, and caused people to flock here. And then somebody got them to vote us number one, and so everybody looking for a new place to move. That was kind of a booming, thriving, nice small town. Decided to come this way. So it's been incredible. Good. Yeah. A lot of folks moving in, a lot of influence from different areas of the country, I guess, because of new folks living here.
5,000 to 70,000. That's a big jump. I'm a rural guy. I'm in a town of 2,300 people. So I'm just imagining what that would look like to see that go to 50, 60,000 in a short period of time is almost unthinkable. So
yeah. Well, the good thing is I live right on the outskirts of that. So we still consider ourselves living in the country, but you drive a mile away or a half a mile away and you're in neighborhoods with big houses, so it's a nice little bit of both. So
yeah. Well, tell me the story about your pastoral ministry. How long have you been pastoring, and what has that looked like for you?
Sure. So I started a career years ago, and I felt the call of the Lord really in high school. Just walked with the Lord closely, like He had His hand on me, and it wasn't common at that time for other people, if that makes sense. I just really walking close with the Lord. I ended up going to college, and I love recreation. I love sports. That was kind of my thing. I knew ministry. I remember going to Promise Keepers years ago. If you don't probably remember hearing that. Oh yeah. And one night we were sitting around after one of the events, and all the men were talking, hey, what about this in your life? What about this in your life? And one guy's like, if I could just lead one person to the Lord, and somebody else said, if I could just, it was kind of like this one, if I could just impact one life. And I get to me and I'm thinking, man, I want to impact a lot of lives for Christ, And that was the desire of my heart, was kind of because of what he put there,
Yeah.
And so in college, I studied business, studied recreation, met my later to be wife, and started a career with the YMCA, and thought, man, that's a perfect fit for me. Minister to people, love sports, just the whole idea. Wanted my own rec center one day, and that was it. And I had that career for nearly 15 years, and there was something in me that just wrestled with, like, is this it? The higher you go, sometimes you realize it's not quite what you thought it was going to be.
Right.
And I was blessed to have a branch that I was over. We were able to build it, and it was good. Enjoyed it. It was a small town, but making an impact, felt like on a lot of people. But I remembered one day walking through the halls, just asking the Lord, was that desire that was in me to impact a lot of lives for Christ, was that even still there? And I'm working out because you try to model what you practice, what you preach, I'm saying healthy and that kind of thing. And I can just remember the Lord speaking to my heart saying, it's still there, but it's not in this job. And man, so I'm just crying on the trail. I'm a cry when the Lord touches me, and it flows, man. That's just how the Holy Spirit works in my life. But I'm looking around going, is anybody watching this grown man? Just as the Lord's just speaking to my heart. And so I knew at that point it was time to move on, And so my wife and I, she knew I was dealing with some things, kind of wrestling, and just there was a bigger call in my life. And so back in 2012, we knew it was time. So we weren't quite sure where we were going or what we were doing, but knew it was away from there. And so I chose to just step away from it, and we did. And throughout that process and that journey, several things happened, but we ended up working toward, we started a ministry called Salt and Light Ministries. I guess the formal name is being Salt and Light Ministries. But, when you think something just started, the Lord's like, hey, I started that in you a long time ago. And I realized that. And because I would do devotions with staff, and there's so many properties to salt, so many properties to light, and so we started our ministry. And I would just a desire to stoke the fire in people's lives. We would go to different churches, different groups to speak, to encourage in the faith, to keep pressing on, let your light shine. I mean, there's a lot of illustrations that the Lord has allowed me to discover over time that can just encourage us in the faith to keep pressing on, and So did that for several years, still doing that, but I go to church in different groups. But I can remember where we used to live about 6 years ago in the summer. You're raising your own support. It's, I'm doing this job or that job. And we're going to talk a little more about kind of what something began when we were there too, here, I guess, in our interview. But just crying out, Lord, what are we doing next? Where do we go from here? It's challenging. It's tough. It's not adding up, And he gave me a piece about moving back to Apex that I did not want to move back. I wasn't sure why I never really brought it up. It was just like, I don't want to move back to my hometown. It's time to move on. We had 4 kids. We started life. We did family, it was my wife and I and our kids, And, but as soon as I let go and said, okay, Lord, I'm willing to go back. Man, he put somebody on my wife's heart about buying our house. We're just going to ask them. And they're going, well, we hadn't told anybody, but in 2 weeks, we're putting our house on the market. We'd love to buy your house. As soon as our house sells, well, the first person that came and looked at their house, they made an offer. And I mean, when the Lord's in it, it's like bam, 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 And I knew we were to move back to Apex. I wasn't quite sure what we were doing or how we were doing it, or income or anything like that. And so, Proverbs, it talks about, you establish your business and then you build your house. And I'm going, Lord, we don't have that established. I just know you're moving us back to Apex, but I'm not quite sure everything else and how that's working, Well, he gave me a piece about it. Another time he spoke to my heart, he said, your business has been established. You're a minister of the gospel. You're just relocating. And after that, I just had a piece about the move, about making an offer on a house, about all these things that just came together, And we were at a church. So right after that, we moved in, lived with my dad for a couple of months. then we found the house we made an offer on and moved into it. And then a few months after that, began our at a church here close by where we live, and knew the Lord brought us there. Absolutely had no doubt. It was just the timing. Everything about it was just the Lord's hand on it. Pre-COVID, the church had a few things going on. I ended up was doing youth and outreach, and I just am a minister of the gospel. I don't get into the denomination thing too much. When I was a kid, my folks were divorced. That's never a good thing, but the Lord works all things together for good for those that love him and called according to his purpose. And so my mom was at a Baptist church. My dad had gone to a Pentecostal church, and I got to see every other weekend 2 different styles of worship, so that helped shape me just to be a minister of the gospel. That's the way I see myself, and but I ended up being at this church and helping out. And then a few months after I was there, ended up being the interim pastor at that church, because the gentleman who was there ended up stepping away, and perfect timing with the Lord. If I had come on day one to be the interim pastor, that would not have worked, as well. And that's just the Lord's timing, I believe. Mm-hmm. And so served at that church for 4 years, almost 5, close to 5. And just, it was time to move on. Different things, don't want to get into a lot of that, but I just knew the Lord had given me a timetable to be there in my own heart, my spirit, that he laid some things on my heart, and those things came to pass. And so I knew kind of that's where we are right now, if you will, at kind of a crossroads of planting a church, and just love the Lord, love people, and reminded that I love the Lord, so he helps me to love people. It's a challenge there at times, but just to see people lives transformed in Christ. And so loving his word, and he's used that for us in our ministry. I'm giving you a snapshot of some things. We've been blessed to give thousands of Bibles away to different people, different groups at different times, and just a variety of things. But in a nutshell, preaching the gospel, encouraging Christians in their walk with Christ, and making disciples. That's kind of sums up our ministry and what we do and the things that he's put on my heart. And that's what we're trying to go for. And so the making disciples, I've learned. I went on a mission trip with the church that I was at before I stepped away almost a year ago. And we went on a mission trip to New York City. And this was a really an eye-opening experience for me. The Lord was already dealing with my heart and teaching me things. I used to think, well, if you're doing ministry, I know we talked a little bit about before we recorded, but it's not always full time, at a church. It's, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, that's where you're ministering the gospel. And so on this mission trip, the guy that showed us around and the church we went and helped serve, he was very grateful, very hospitable, but he said, this is going to be a little different than maybe any mission trip you've been on before. And so he walked us around, and we went to the park, and he said, let me tell you why it's a little different. He said, because, we used to have churches come, they would do a hot dog giveaway in New York, and they'd be so excited because the lady over there laying on the bench, they just led to the Lord. They're so excited. And he's like, but what they didn't realize is she got led to the Lord last week, the week before that, the week before that. It's like you go there on mission for a week, and it feels good, and you can do some meaningful work. And I'm not negating that, but it might not be, you're not living there 24/7 for years to see the life impact, the challenges of making disciples, the messy sometimes, people, and that just really opened my eyes to some things. And as the Lord was teaching me, it was just, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. So as a minister called by the Lord, there's certainly a higher calling on some of our lives, because given by the Lord, to be an under shepherd, to be an evangelist, preacher, teacher, just pouring in for the equipping of the saints. But we all in Christ need to be equipped and grow and make disciples, fulfill the Great Commission, and those kind of things. So I've had a lot of shift in my thinking in the last few years, and just trying to live it out, and how to live it out, and being real about it, and so. So from my heart and the passion, I probably got a little winded on you, but telling you some of this, but just to pursue the Lord, and knowing he's alive, he's real. He works in the hearts and lives of people, and and he's still doing that, and so that's kind of shaped us to where we are now. We are in trying to plant a church. We've had some different experiences. We do other types of work just to bring income into the home. We need that, and we've been very blessed and very fortunate to do some things over time that have gave us experiences that have allowed us to be more well-rounded, in some things that we're doing, and using those experiences to glorify God and to be on mission wherever we are and whatever we're doing. So
yeah, I love that theme that you're tapping into there. And as I told you before we started recording, that this is a theme we hear again and again in the people that we interview in this podcast, pastors that are out in the marketplace in some way, shape, or form. It really is combating that narrative, that mindset that whether it's pastors or just general church people as a whole have in their mind that, well, if you're in ministry, it means that you get a paycheck from a church and you have a title and an office and that sort of thing. And I mean, that can be one way ministry looks, but the reality is ministry happens in the marketplace every single day. Ministry is wherever I am at the moment. Like I really literally can be serving people for the kingdom of God, and God can be putting me in the path of people who he wants me to serve and be his hands and feet to them and represent him to them. So that's one of the many benefits we see of having pastors in the marketplace. And I know you had mentioned you're kind of even right now in a season of a little bit of a transition or maybe a crossroads season, and we love encountering people in those crossroads, because it's like we want to help people take those steps in a powerful way. But the one thing, this part of the story I really want to get into with you and share with our audience is something when you and I originally connected, some work that you're doing. It's unlike anything I've ever heard on this podcast. I mean, it's a really cool thing. It's in direct response to crisis and people in need. So I don't want to steal any of your thunder, but tell us a little bit about some of the work that you are doing, and we'll get into even maybe where there's opportunity for others to jump in and be a part of this. So tell it however you want to tell it.
Okay, thank you. Absolutely. So back up to me telling you, I'm just crying out to the Lord, it's not adding up, money's tight and all these things. Well, just a little before that, similar in time frame, I'm one of my sons turned 16, the oldest son did, and I'm going, Lord, as a parent, you want to provide, you want to buy a vehicle. Yeah, I mean, those things that you just try to help if you can, and I couldn't. I didn't have the didn't have the means to do so, and so I got a call from my brother, who had gotten a call from a friend who said, hey, they're doing some disaster relief going down to Florida. It's paying pretty good per day. And the deal is you depending on how you work, depends on how you get paid. You work harder, you get paid better. I mean, just that kind of simple, do you want to go? And my son could go too. So I said, absolutely. Because at the time I maybe had $100, $200 to my name, and I said, let's go, and I knew going down, I told my son, I said, hey, we work hard, we get paid better. So let's just do good and let's work hard. And I get down there, and I've made some great friends over this experience and time. But when we get down there, this is not your Christian mission trip. You're thinking, hey, we're going to go. And some of the folks that you work with are kind of rough characters, I mean, that
I like them already.
Yeah. Carnival folks, you think to get a call and to drop what you're doing to go work, not everybody can do that. And some folks that can do that may, not all, but some are might be a little rough around the edges, if you will. Might not be there to serve the Lord. They're just there to make some money and have a good time, kind of thing. So we go down, we work hard. We're there for about 10 days. I mean, working hard. We saw some things, heard the language. And my son's young, so I'm going, Lord, guard our eyes and our ears, and then I prayed, let the light of Christ shine brightly in, on, and through us, that he be seen and glorified. And I wasn't there to say, hey, I'm a minister or anything like that. I'm just there to, hey, man, let's work hard and hopefully we'll do good. I did give away Bibles. I shared that earlier. So I take a handful of those because you never know when the Lord lays somebody on your heart to share with, and you want to be obedient to that. And so we get down there, we work. I mean, we're feeding like 1,800 people a meal, and basically the groups that we work with are contracts with power companies, telecommunications, those kind of things. So we supply the support for them so they can go and restore the power, restore the communications. So we're there to help make a difference. We're just blessed to be able to get paid for it. And
so let me jump in here, just so I'm clear.
Sure.
What the work that you're doing, you're a part of a disaster relief response to a region, an area that's been hit by a natural disaster of some sort. And
That's right.
You're following the power companies, the people that are out restoring power and the infrastructure. Those people have to stay somewhere, they have to eat. And so the work that you're doing is a support role to those folks that are kind of the frontline workers in that realm. Is that an accurate statement?
That is a very accurate statement. So what we do, we can go to an airport parking lot, a mall parking lot. This last fall, we were in Winn-Dixie parking lot on Pine Island. It was kind of ground zero for the Hurricane Ian that came through. And so we set up, we have trailers, we have sleepers, we have showers, we do laundry, and then we cater. We make the meals for them, hot right. Breakfast, hot supper, and a bag lunch so they can take it out on the field with them. And so that's the work that we do. And it takes a team of dedicated folks that don't mind getting up at early in the mornings, 3:30, 4:30 in the morning, working about 16-hour days. But it is very rewarding. And so go back to my first experience with it. My son and I worked so hard. We did good. And at the very end of the experience, there was a guy or two that we worked with, and I kind of wrote them off in my mind. I'm like, man, son, just stay away from this guy. He's kind of trouble, Well, the Lord taught me in that moment. The night before we left, the Lord had that guy. He came up to me, crocodile tears in his eyes, broken, man, and said, man, would you pray for me? And I'm going, absolutely. And the Lord showed me, don't write anybody off. He wants to love on whoever, however, and change their life, and that's what Christ does for me, for you, for all of us, right? So the experience and who you work with and who you work for down there is just a great opportunity for most of us as pastors to step into a different environment just for a little while. It's almost kind of get a fix of a fast pace and an opportunity to serve and love on people that you don't normally do the rest of the year, So a little bit of that disaster relief has kind of put me in, coach, kind of, the adrenaline going as well. And
yeah.
But the Lord was teaching me there. And the next day I gave him a Bible. I just felt impressed to give him a Bible. We pray over and we highlight some things. 5 minutes later, he comes back with this like deer in the headlights look, man, did you write this? I said, yeah, we highlight, and his situation that he had spoke to me on, the things that were highlighted were directly related to his answer, and that's just we're just working for the Lord and with the Lord, and he orchestrates how all that stuff comes together. Oh. So that was an example for the first one, which got me thinking, we need the money, but also I'm doing ministry wherever you are, whatever you're doing. This is where I'm a minister of the gospel. And we want to serve others and with others and be a light in the world, So that got me to thinking, got me gained experience. And you remember I told you about crying out to the Lord about my son, even how in the world is this going to happen? Could it happen? Well, I'm bragging on the Lord here. How many 16-year-olds do you know? My son's the kind of guy, he wants to do it himself. He wants to buy it himself if he can, all that kind of stuff. And so how many 16-year-olds, go away for about 10 days and make enough to buy their own vehicle? But that was my son. That the Lord provided. He allowed that, And so it was good. And so might not get away all the time every year, but for a week or two, 3, it's a great opportunity. And so that was the first storm. That's been about 6 years, and we've since kind of started another group that we work with and go out and work for, but still love the guy that we started with. Great friends. I mean, we talk today. We always, hey man, love you, man. We talk. So it's nothing like that. We just knew there was another company that we was kind of starting out, and we felt like for my buddy and I, who called me on that first storm, thought that, hey, if we go with this other group, we're getting on the ground level, it's going to be good for our kids, and there's mobility up and can do really well if that happens. So
are you in any way like a partner in this, or you just work for this company, or do you have any level of like ownership of it as like from an entrepreneurial standpoint?
Right. So great lead in. My friend said, hey man, if I go over and partner contract with this other company, will you go with me? It was kind of like, couldn't do it alone. We make a good team, and myself and sons, we add a lot of value. I'm not bragging. I'm just, to make it complete, you got to do things as a team. And so I said, yeah, we'll go with you. So my friend owns the company. It's kind of like a staffing company, but we recruit people that are willing to work, and go on these storms. And so that being said, when I recruit people, you can make money off of your own work, but then also people that you recruit, you can make money off of them, if you will. And that's what I wanted to offer the pastors, because some pastors may listen to the podcast here and say, you know what, great idea, but I'm never going on a storm to work and serve eggs and grits to electric power company guys. It's not happening. But I share that because they may have a network of restaurant owners or people that need work that they could send. And I just talked to a pastor, I guess it was yesterday, and he said, I may go and we get a group of guys to go and we'll raise money. He said, one for my daughter's wedding. He kind of joked about that, but he said, these other guys we can work and make money this week to pay for the mission trip we go on later. And I'm going, exactly, absolutely. I mean, it all can work together. And so the thing to offer with pastors to extend this out as an idea to come and serve and work, to join our team. But also if you were able to recruit people, is every hour that they work to possibly get you signed up to do $1 an hour for that person, to make it worth someone doing just a passive income. But I'm figuring pastors would recruit the right people that we're looking for, because we want to influence the culture with just godly people, men and women that can be a light in the workplace. And there's enough to go around. So
Daniel, what goes through my mind when you say that, like the thought of pastors not only going and being there, but then really recruiting others. And if you do that, there's a little bit of income potential there. I mean, obviously if you recruit enough people, that starts to add up after a while, but right. Here's what the thought that goes through my mind. Years ago, when that tornado ripped through Joplin, Missouri, I don't know if you remember that, but our little church, probably like many churches of people who care, you see this national disaster and you're like, we want to help, we want to respond. Well, we had a small team of people who came together from our church, and we sent them off to, with a trailer full of tools and some water and whatnot. And they went down and found a way to plug in and serve. But I mean, you think of how many people would say, well, we don't know where to plug in. Maybe we're not even offering the right kind of help. Whereas if a pastor connected with you and your organization, they could have a direct line to plug people in and say, I got a place for you to go. You want to go get involved and served. It would be a way for churches to answer that question. What can we do? And we know these things are going to happen. They happen all the time, every year. There's storms and disasters, and it's in those moments that the body of Christ can really shine and step into some of our finest moments, when we show up in people's lives in that time of desperation and need, and just we're there. So anyway, my mind is going back to that story. Like, man, if I would have been you back then, we would have saved a lot of headache and just gone, I know a guy, we're going to send him right down here and he'll plug you in and put you to work. And I would have made bucks off the people who went. How cool would that have been?
Absolutely. And some people, that's the breaking of the mindset of, I can't get paid to do ministry, because sometimes we think, if I'm going on a mission trip, I've got to do it for free. I've got to sacrifice. And we can make you that deal if you want to come work, and we could just send the money to your church, or to a ministry that a layperson may say, hey, I want to raise money for our mission trip. Just send everything that I would have made to the mission trip, campaign, whatever. Those are options that we could do for sure. And I'll speak to the we have seen also, excited people to come down. But when, like this last year going on Pine Island, we had a pass, the sticker on the side of the truck, we're pulling large equipment. And the guy who's blocking traffic says, nobody in, looks at us and says, hey, come in, glad you guys are here. Eager people that want to help. It's great. But sometimes there's so much going on there. Good intentions might not land with a place to actually be organized and serve. That's
Right.
not always duplicated 5 times over.
Yeah,
And
well said.
and the other side of that, my hope and desire as we get going and further grow our business, grow our ministry here, and I call it a ministry, it's a business.
Yeah.
I consider it equal. I know that you do as well with things.
Yep.
But I would love to, as we're providing for a group, and it might be paid for, a power company, that is that we go set up shop down on the corner too, and we're just making meals and, hey, drive by and pick one up, kind of thing, for the community. I would love to see that happen. We at the end, we don't really advertise this, but when you do disaster relief, you're not sure when they're going to be done completely. You kind of get a discernment on when the plane's going to land, but you better be prepared as the vendor to provide them a meal. We better not run out of food and run out of meals, if they're not ready to stop. So, but sometimes we have a half of a tractor trailer, maybe even a full tractor trailer full of food, that at the end we're going, they're done and we've got nowhere to put this food. So we try to find food banks. This past year, I drove around to neighborhoods and said, hey guys, come on up here and just load your truck up, share with your neighbors, kind of thing. So there's good that comes from that too, that goodwill, and everybody wants to help others. And so, those are some benefits also for me that I see, because I used to hate throwing away food. I still don't like throwing away food. So if we can find somebody to help, but I've also learned, hey, the homeless shelter is also without power. It means their refrigerators don't work. So we can't donate so you have to discern a little bit more of what you normally would think was helpful, that sometimes in a disastrous situation, you can be helpful in different ways, but might not be the same way you do back home.
Yeah. Well, this is cool, man. I as I told you on the phone when we first connected, as a first responder, a firefighter, I kind of get that whole sense of responding to the scene of an emergency, and from a little bit different perspective, but it's lighting that part up in me. It's like, yeah, I get what you're doing, and I think it's cool. And I should have asked you this a lot earlier. What's the name of your organization? And I want to ask how people can connect with you before we wrap up our time together. So what's the name of the group that you're serving with, and then how can people connect with you?
Sure. So the company that I work with is Old North State Logistics. And you can connect with me through my phone or email. And I also consider our ministry supporting this and kind of working in conjunction with to recruit and to gain, because sometimes we have local opportunities that the same people we've recruited help in our ministry and that kind of thing. So, but my phone number is 704-300-7780. And my email is Daniel and this is all spelled out, besaltandlight.net, besaltandlight.net. And phone or email, we're in the process of trying to create a better website to recruit, and just, hey, go on there and fill out some information about yourself and share some things, but that's not currently available. So I don't want to share something with you that's not up and running yet. So we're just recruiting by mouth. I ran across your ministry and I thought, man, for me, just trying to find more income, let me see what you guys are doing and offering. And I'm going, man, and then was grateful to shoot you an email to share what we do, thinking there might be others that were interested, So I'm grateful that we were able to connect this way, and hopeful that I'm realizing I can't just recruit people I know. I've got to branch out and find others who all around the country. I mean, there are opportunities. We do ice storms in New Jersey. I mean, I was in Cincinnati last summer, had tornadoes and those kind of things. So we're going a lot of places. We're growing very fast. And so we need people. Don't let the location of where you reside hinder you necessarily from being able to serve. And the company I work with, we actually, and this is really cool because this wasn't early on, but when you leave your house, man, the clock starts for you getting paid. So that's kind of cool in my book, wasn't my rule, but I sure appreciate it, So, and most folks do, per diems, pay for your gas, expenses to get down. And then of course, when you're there, you get great food. We cook. I mean, it's one day for the power guys when we grilled steaks. I mean, it was kind of celebrating almost being done, kind of thing. But I'm hopeful we can connect. Would love to have a conversation with pastors, with lay ministers, with whoever they might could forward my name to, and then see if we could get some folks signed up or have them as kind of a filter for some of their people, and do that.
Yeah, well, I love it, man, and I'm confident that we have a wide array of listeners to this podcast, so I guarantee that what you're doing is resonating with some, maybe not all, but with some for sure, that would hear this and go, man, that sounds cool. I want to be a part of that. So I'm grateful that you reached out and connected with us, and I love the work that you're doing. And I'll be cheering you on too, as you kind of continue to explore what this season of crossroads looks like for you, even in your own, entree pastor journey, as we call it around here. So all the best to you, man. Thanks so much for your time and for being on the show. I'm grateful.
Thank you. I appreciate it as well. I've enjoyed talking with you. And God bless you too, as a first responder. Man, that's a big deal. And anytime I see, I'm on just a little plug for you, man, if you don't mind.
Yeah,
try to train my kids on this. Whenever we see an ambulance or a fire just going past us on the road, sometimes the first thought is traffic stop. I'm late, but it's truly like that's our time to pray for you guys, So if somebody listening hadn't thought of that, just pray for our first responders when you see them in action, because you're very much appreciated. I'm very grateful. First-hand experience for that as well.
Grateful for that. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Well, hey, thanks for watching this episode of the Entree Pastors Podcast. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can be notified every time we release a new episode. If you'd like to get connected to other pastors who are learning to think, act, and thrive as prosperous entrepreneurs, then we invite you to check us out on Facebook. Just search for the Entree Pastors Connect group. Answer a few of our simple questions there, and we'd love to include you in the conversations. And if you're really ready to go to the next level, then we invite you to join our Entree Pastors membership community. When you become a monthly subscriber, you will receive access to courses, exclusive community, and coaching that will help you along in your own Entree Pastors journey. If there's anything else we can do to serve you, please visit us at entrepastors.com, and we will do our best to serve you there. God bless everybody. See you soon.